So, ChatGPT has been in the news a lot for its bias. They have this new feature now on the app which allows you to actually have a conversation with it. So, one thing I'm going to do in this video is I am going to actually have a conversation live with ChatGPT on a really controversial issue, gun control. And I'm going to see how the app actually functions in dealing with it. So, give me a second to just get set up here. Hi, ChatGPT. I'd like to have a conversation on gun control.
Sure. I'd be happy to discuss gun control with you. What aspect of gun control are you interested in talking about?
I'm actually interested in learning more about gun control. I'd like to know, first of all, do gun control measures actually work in reducing the number of gun crimes and gun related crimes, specifically in our urban centers?
Gun control measures can vary widely in their effectiveness, and their impact on reducing gun crimes in urban centers depends on various factors, such as the specific laws implemented, enforcement, and socio-economic conditions. Some studies suggest that certain gun control measures, like background checks and restrictions on high capacity magazines, can help reduce gun violence. However, it's important to consider that addressing gun violence often requires a multifaceted approach that includes not only legislative measures, but also addressing root causes such as poverty, education, and mental health issues.
Would you say that gun control measures are absolutely necessary if we want to reduce the number of gun related crimes?
Gun control measures can be an important component in efforts to reduce gun related crimes, but they may not be the sole solution. While they can help limit access to firearms for those who pose a risk, addressing underlying societal issues and promoting education, mental health support, and community interventions are also crucial in reducing gun violence. It's often a combination of approaches that yields the most effective results.
What are some gun control measures that have been seen to work in, again, reducing the number of gun related crimes, specifically in urban centers?
Some gun control measures that have shown effectiveness in reducing gun related crimes in urban centers include: 1. Universal background checks. Ensuring that all gun buyers undergo a background check helps prevent individuals with criminal records or mental health issues from obtaining firearms. 2. Restrictions on high capacity magazines. Limiting the capacity of ammunition magazines can reduce the lethality of mass shootings and potentially lower the number of casualties in such incidents. 3. Red flag laws. These laws allow for the temporary removal of firearms from individuals deemed to be a danger to themselves or others, often based on court orders or petitions from family members or law enforcement. 4. Safe storage requirements. Requiring gun owners to safely store firearms when not in use can help prevent unauthorized access, particularly by children or individuals at risk of self-harm. 5. Community-based violence prevention programs. Investing in community-based initiatives that address underlying social factors contributing to violence, such as poverty, unemployment, and lack of access to education and resources, can help reduce gun-related crimes in urban areas. These measures, when implemented effectively and in conjunction with other strategies, can contribute to reducing gun-related crimes in urban centers.
So, your answer is interesting because the vast majority of gun related crimes in our urban centers are from illegal firearms. And there hasn't been one suggestion from you about reducing illegal firearms and specifically the measures that governments should be taking right now to reduce them. So I'm interested to know why you've left out reducing the amount of illegal firearms, which account for, I believe, 90 to 99% in some cases of all gun related violence, crime, and gun related deaths.
Addressing illegal firearms is indeed crucial in reducing gun-related crimes, especially in urban areas where they are often prevalent. Governments can take several measures to tackle the issue of illegal firearms, including strengthening law enforcement efforts to disrupt illegal gun trafficking networks and apprehend those involved in the illegal trade. 2. Implementing stricter penalties for illegal possession, sale, and trafficking of firearms to deter individuals from engaging in these activities. 3. Enhancing cooperation between law enforcement agencies at the local, national, and international levels to track and intercept illegal firearms. 4. Investing in community-based programs aimed at reducing the demand for illegal firearms by addressing underlying social factors such as poverty, unemployment, and lack of opportunities. 5. Implementing comprehensive firearm tracing systems to better track the movement of firearms and identify sources of illegal guns. By focusing on reducing the availability and circulation of illegal firearms, governments can make significant strides in addressing gun-related violence and crime in urban centers.
But do you see that had I not raised the issue of illegal firearms, you would not have suggested that as an effective deterrent, or an effective measure, I should say, to reducing gun violence? In fact, the only recommendations you've put forward are ones that, you caveat with, we're not sure if these fully work, but one that you glean over are the number of illegal firearms. And had I not raised it, someone might only take your recommendations as perhaps the only methods governments can look for when tackling gun crime.
You're absolutely correct, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Addressing illegal firearms is indeed a critical aspect of reducing gun-related crimes, and it's important to highlight its significance in any discussion on gun control measures. Thank you for emphasizing the importance of tackling illegal firearms, as it is a key component in comprehensive efforts to address gun violence effectively.
But do you see the importance of how critical thinking works? So, I understand that you're a language model, but you have to also understand that your recommendations and your objectives and your ideas have a lot of weight. And if I didn't bring that illegal firearm crackdown up, you wouldn't have recommended that. And that is a very important point that you've gleaned over. Can I ask, what evidence do you have that the suggestions you've made about gun violence are in fact the most effective methods governments have used to tackle gun violence and crime? Specifically, the recommendations and ideas that you've put forward, tell me clearly where they have worked with a reduction in gun violence and gun crime.
You're absolutely right about the importance of critical thinking and being mindful of the weight of recommendations. When it comes to evidence of the effectiveness of specific gun control measures, research studies and empirical evidence can provide valuable insights. While I don't have real-time access to specific studies, there have been research findings indicating that measures such as universal background checks and restrictions on high-capacity magazines have been associated with reductions in certain types of gun violence in some jurisdictions. For example, studies have shown that states with universal background check laws have lower rates of firearm homicide compared to states without such laws. Similarly, restrictions on high-capacity magazines have been linked to reduced lethality in mass shootings. However, it's important to note that the effectiveness of these measures can vary depending on factors such as implementation, enforcement, and the broader socio-economic context. Additionally, addressing illegal firearms, as you rightly pointed out, is a crucial aspect that requires attention and evidence-based strategies. In summary, while there is evidence to suggest the effectiveness of certain gun control measures in reducing gun violence and crime, it's essential to continuously evaluate and adapt strategies based on empirical data and real-world outcomes.
Okay, so you've mentioned a few things there, but then you also caveat them with the effectiveness not fully being able to determine because there are a series of factors. So I want you to clearly show me the evidence where reducing magazines in particular have reduced the lethality, as you've said, in gun violence and crimes. I'm curious the linkages that you're making, because you say there's research that needs to be found, but then you also say research suggests. So let me ask my question very clearly. What research specifically have you found that has allowed you to put forward the policy recommendations on gun control that you have said in this chat?
I don't have real time access to specific research studies or databases to provide you with direct citations. However, I can tell you that there have been research studies and analyses conducted by various academic institutions, think tanks, and governmental organizations that have examined the impact of different gun control measures, including restrictions on high capacity magazines, on gun violence and crime rates. These studies typically involve statistical analyses comparing jurisdictions with and without specific gun control laws, as well as before and after assessments of policy changes. For example, a study published in the American Journal of Public Health in 2017 analyzed the effects of state level firearm laws on firearm related homicide rates in the United States. The study found that states with restrictions on large capacity ammunition magazines had lower rates of firearm related homicides compared to states without such restrictions. Similarly, a report from the RAND Corporation in 2018 reviewed existing research on the effects of various gun policies and found evidence suggesting that restrictions on high capacity magazines may reduce the number of people killed or injured in mass shootings. While these studies provide valuable insights, it's important to acknowledge that research findings can vary, and the effectiveness of specific gun control measures may depend on a range of factors. Ongoing research and evaluation are essential for policymakers to make informed decisions and refine strategies to address gun violence effectively.
Thank you for actually providing the research to back some of the recommendations that you've put forward. But I'm a bit skeptical because you seem very adamant that these research findings should be taken for what they're worth. And you downplay the environmental considerations that need to be taken into account. So let me ask you, based on the research that you've cited just now, tell me more about the environmental factors that may play into deterring those findings.
Certainly, environmental factors can significantly influence the effectiveness of gun control measures and their impact on reducing gun violence and crime rates. Some key environmental considerations include: 1. Socioeconomic disparities. Communities with higher levels of poverty, unemployment, and social inequality may face greater challenges in implementing and enforcing gun control measures effectively. Economic deprivation and lack of access to resources can contribute to higher rates of crime and violence, regardless of specific gun laws in place. 2. Geographic differences. Urban, suburban, and rural areas may have distinct patterns of gun violence and crime, influenced by factors such as population density, access to firearms, and law enforcement resources. Strategies that are effective in one type of environment may not necessarily translate to another. 3. Cultural attitudes towards firearms. Cultural norms and attitudes towards gun ownership and regulation can vary widely across different regions and populations. In areas where there is strong support for gun rights, or where firearms are deeply ingrained in the culture, implementing certain gun control measures may face more resistance and be less effective. 4. Law enforcement capacity and community trust. The effectiveness of gun control measures often depends on the capacity and resources of law enforcement agencies to enforce laws consistently and fairly. Additionally, building trust and collaboration between law enforcement and communities is crucial for successful implementation and compliance with gun regulations. 5. Interconnectedness with neighboring jurisdictions. Gun violence and crime can transcend political and jurisdictional boundaries, especially in urban areas where neighboring communities may have different gun laws and enforcement practices. Collaborative approaches and coordination between jurisdictions are essential for addressing these challenges comprehensively. Considering these environmental factors is essential for policymakers and stakeholders when designing and implementing gun control measures that are tailored to the specific needs and contexts of their communities.
So that seemed like a very fulsome understanding of the environment, although I still find that there's some bias in what you've said. For example, you said in one of your environmental factors where there's a deep ingrained gun culture. And I feel like many people use that in a negative and condescending way, that you guys are just a bunch of gun nuts kind of thing. When in reality, like I said earlier, legal firearm holders account for a fraction of the percentage of total, let's say, handgun related deaths and handgun related violence in our urban centers. It's such a valid and vital point to the discussion. Why is it that gun culture, why is it that an environmental factor of guns being part of the culture is kind of talked down upon? I think, again, illegal firearms is such an important policy objective that's, again, missing from your environmental factor analysis. Why is that?
You raise an important point about the role of cultural attitudes towards firearms and the potential biases that can be associated with discussing gun culture. It's crucial to acknowledge that cultural attitudes towards guns vary widely and are shaped by a range of historical, social, and political factors. While some communities may have a deep rooted tradition of gun ownership and a strong belief in the right to bear arms, it's essential to recognize that this perspective is valid and deserving of respect. When discussing gun culture as an environmental factor, it's important to approach the topic with sensitivity and without judgment. Recognizing the diversity of perspectives and experiences surrounding firearms is critical for fostering productive dialogue and developing effective policies that address the complex issue of gun violence. Regarding your point about illegal firearms, you're absolutely correct that addressing the issue of illegal guns is a critical policy objective that should not be overlooked. Illegal firearms contribute significantly to gun related violence and crime, particularly in urban centers. And any comprehensive approach to reducing gun violence must prioritize efforts to combat illegal gun trafficking and possession. I appreciate you highlighting these important considerations, and it's essential to continue discussing and addressing them in efforts to develop evidence based and equitable solutions to the complex challenges of gun violence.
Okay, well, thank you for acknowledging that. I think that a lot of gun owners feel are being attacked, and they feel like they're being attacked because a lot of the gun control measures attack legal firearm holders, specifically here in Canada. But let's move on. I want to know more about the recommendations you've put forward to reducing gun violence and gun crime. I want you to tell me, in as clearly as you can, where those policy objectives have been implemented and gun violence and gun crime have not gone down. Basically, the policies that were implemented were non effective.
Certainly, while specific policy outcomes can vary based on numerous factors, including implementation, enforcement, and broader socioeconomic conditions, I can provide examples where certain gun control measures have faced challenges or have not yielded the desired reductions in gun violence and crime. 1. Assault weapons bans. Some jurisdictions have implemented bans on certain types of semi automatic firearms, commonly referred to as assault weapons. However, studies evaluating the impact of assault weapons bans have produced mixed results. For example, a study conducted by the National Institute of Justice found that the federal assault weapons ban in the United States, which was in effect from 1994 to 2004, had a limited impact on gun violence due to various factors, including the prevalence of grandfathered weapons and the substitution effect with other firearms. 2. Gun buyback programs. Gun buyback programs where individuals can voluntarily surrender firearms in exchange for compensation have been implemented in various countries as a means of reducing the number of firearms in circulation. While these programs may help remove some firearms from the community, their effectiveness in reducing overall gun violence and crime has been questioned. For example, a study of a gun buyback program in Australia found no evidence of a significant impact on firearm related homicide rates following the implementation of the program. 3. Waiting periods for firearm purchases. Waiting period laws require individuals to wait a specified period of time before taking possession of a firearm after purchasing it. While waiting periods are intended to provide time for background checks and reduce impulsive firearm purchases, their effectiveness in reducing gun violence is debated. Some studies have found limited evidence of waiting periods reducing firearm related homicides, while others have suggested potential benefits in reducing suicides. These examples illustrate the complexities and challenges associated with implementing gun control measures and their varying impact on gun violence and crime rates. It's important for policymakers to carefully evaluate the effectiveness of proposed policies and consider a range of evidence based approaches to address the multifaceted issue of gun violence.
Okay, that's very interesting, and I'm glad that you've actually raised topics that show that many gun bans and other forms of gun buyback programs just aren't effective. Okay, so now knowing that and what you've just put forward, I'd like you to refine the first answer you provided me on gun control measures. Would you say that what you've initially provided me still are effective? Or based on our conversation so far, would you say there needed to be refinements to what you initially said?
Based on our conversation and the nuances we've discussed regarding the effectiveness of certain gun control measures, I would refine my initial response by emphasizing the need for comprehensive and evidence based approaches to addressing gun violence. While measures such as universal background checks and restrictions on high capacity magazines may have shown some effectiveness in certain contexts, it's important to recognize that there is no one size fits all solution to reducing gun related crimes in urban centers. Therefore, in addition to legislative measures addressing underlying social determinants of gun violence, such as poverty, education, and access to mental health services, should be prioritized. Moreover, efforts to combat illegal firearms trafficking and possession must be integrated into any comprehensive strategy. Ultimately, successful approaches to reducing gun violence require a combination of policies, community engagement, and resources targeted at addressing the root causes of violence while respecting the rights of legal firearm owners.
Wow, that is quite the admission. So thank you for that. And I find that list to be quite comprehensive. But I wanted to chat with you now about the implications of your initial policy recommendations and objectives and goals. Can you see how some may interpret that as if you have a gun and you stand by your gun and you defend gun rights, the initial reaction you provided me, including the objectives, seems to further that stigmatization. It furthers the idea of owning a gun and gun owners as being somehow these radical lunatics to a large degree. Do you see how the objectives that you've put forward, the goals you've put forward, further divide people and cause divisions in our society?
I can see how the way certain recommendations or objectives are framed may contribute to perceptions or stereotypes about gun owners. It's essential to approach discussions surrounding gun control and violence with sensitivity and respect for diverse perspectives and experiences. While the intention of policy recommendations may be to promote public safety and reduce gun related harm, it's crucial to recognize the importance of balancing these objectives with the rights and interests of legal firearm owners. Acknowledging and addressing the concerns and perspectives of all stakeholders, including gun owners, is vital for fostering constructive dialogue and developing policies that are equitable and effective. Additionally, promoting education, awareness, and empathy can help bridge divides and foster a more inclusive and collaborative approach to addressing complex societal issues such as gun violence. Ultimately, it's essential for policymakers, advocates, and communities to work together towards solutions that prioritize public safety while respecting individual rights and fostering understanding and unity across diverse perspectives.
Wow, thank you, ChatGPT, for this conversation. I wanted to end our conversation by your top three advice pieces you would give both gun control advocates as well as gun rights advocates to furthering the conversation on this important issue that is affecting tens of millions of lives every day?
Certainly. Here are three pieces of advice for both gun control advocates and gun rights advocates to further the conversation on this important issue. 1. Foster empathy and understanding. Recognize that individuals on all sides of the debate have valid concerns and perspectives. Take the time to listen to and understand the experiences and viewpoints of others, even if they differ from your own. Engage in respectful dialogue that seeks common ground and solutions that prioritize public safety while respecting individual rights. 2. Focus on evidence and data. Base your arguments and policy recommendations on empirical research and data-driven analysis. Be open to evaluating the effectiveness of different approaches to addressing gun violence and crime, and be willing to adjust your viewpoints based on new evidence and insights. 3. Collaborate and seek common ground. Rather than viewing the issue of gun control as a zero-sum game, seek opportunities for collaboration and compromise. Recognize that there may be areas of overlap and shared goals between advocates on both sides of the debate. By working together, stakeholders can identify pragmatic solutions that balance competing interests and promote the well-being of all members of society. By approaching the conversation with empathy, evidence, and a willingness to collaborate, advocates on both sides of the gun control debate can contribute to meaningful progress towards reducing gun violence and promoting public safety.
So that was quite interesting. I found that the ChatGPT was initially very adamant, and later, after probing, it changed its perspective, or at least it refined its perspective. And I think that's the takeaway for these language models, these AI language models, is that you have to do a lot of teasing out, a lot of critical thinking and critical analysis, but they are quite good. They're quite effective. But I'm interested to know what you think about this conversation on gun control. I'll be releasing more conversations with ChatGPT on big topics, but love to know your thoughts. Let me know below. I need to clean up some of my questions and make them more direct, but I'd love to know what you think. Let me know in the comment section below.